O danga so London o de London to see aris ro London. Da London lo no che se da nega chu so res marbe. London le to lo no to je London to da de abshe ba yina. Sonro mal danga cha tu res. Sonro sanje ki tejen do temen do tejen temen do ha o chama de ka na je je ane danga cha tu res. ane 간자지 사지비 타 사지비 주인보 고도 그래서 랑런라 되네 손로말 당아도 차유 좋아서 말বে
So we have been explaining the text by the great master Atisha called Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And this is a very important text. And if one can study this and ascertain the meaning, he or she will be able to understand all of Buddha's teachings. This abbreviated text condenses all of the speech of Buddha, or all of the pronouncements of Buddha, both sutra and tantra. So all of the teachings that Buddha gave, and also the causal factors for that actual Buddhahood, are taught and contained within this text, the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So the paths and causes are all contained, and the resultant, the causal and resultant paths are contained. So all of Buddha's teachings, whether they be sutra or tantra, are found in this condensed, very important text.
O dadani badal karsuware jayu gomba dalani bi chawas jayu gomba dalani bi chawad karsena ananga su sanje gen do tang ha tu ngalo pesa ngalo mi ge ten lo jong che go ba yin kali khabros mesedel beje ane sanje ka ane podo jada je yores saji loya kali khabje gres ane wodnge ane sanje gen do tang ha pesa tu kali lo ne nga su te go ba yina ane sheya kali khabjirares ko pocha momores ta London lo jong je ne London ko den chebo song la je ba lo ya ba nge so na ane saje ge do nga teje teme ge den da ane den da tu le la bu jin ne she tu gres London la den ne o de jayu gomba de la dunya bi chewa so o de sa res jayu gomba ane saje jawa saje ro wa sha jam mun 사제 공반도 당하 대진 대매게 안내 버차 몸보여로와 대수그 된다도 버차 코노 줄 때바 때고바 이나 안내 몸보려 가서 걸리 가버려서 된다 시도가 걸리 가버려서 안내 란도 뇨뇨들로 제바 이나 안내 사제그 버차 참하게 된다데 안내 레하버지 시도 그랬어 안내 변요와르스
산제 베차 자당제
다 별은 줘봐 버도 자다 제요로 간주 안 대마임이 되네 단다 몸이 요송으로와
So all of the Buddhist pronouncements, both sutra and tantra, are found in this condensed, very abbreviated texts called the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So it'd be very difficult if one wanted to try to study the sutras directly and the pronouncements of Buddha directly. In the Kanjur, we can find just in Tibetan 108 volumes of text that are actual pronouncements of the Buddha. And to read them all and study them would be very difficult, and they are also encoded and difficult to understand. But when we look at a text such as the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, Atisha was able to condense the meaning and break it and divide it into teachings for three types of beings. And this makes it much more feasible, a much more feasible task to go about understanding this because of the way that it was condensed and explained in a much easier format. But even though it was explained in this condensed, easier format, it does contain all of the teachings of Buddha, both sutra and tantra.
어제 다드네 년쇼 첨보 랑가 준비 좋았어 년쇼 첨보 안는 개마 별을 가서 도당하 안에 별 아디샤 마피 공래 되네 가지고래 도냐래 제겐 속은 하냐래 제겐 갔던 거르스 하디야 마르스 하냐래 제겐 속에 안도냐래 제겐 카나와 드니제네 나루로 마트바 모요가르스
Gawai.
게와 모요가르스 게와 모모 두스제바이나 아니 최봉글레서 하고 가르스 최봉글레 안 서로 셔만 나서 최봉글레 다도다 도냐래 제게 하냐래 제게 카냐래 제게 카도스 당바이나 최봉글 디바사 그레스 디바 최봉글 디바사 사소나 저와 셔만레 최 안주는 거야 마고서 사찰 찐는 그레스 어떤 게 얘가요 와르스 어디다비 주봉을 내대 레라버지네 아니 런던에 되는 까도레스
What were you saying?
Abandoning the Dharma.
Okay. Okay, the misdeed of abandoning the Dharma. Okay. Dene?
주봉을 내서서 말이야 주봉을 다 가만래 아디샤 마페 공을 다 가르쳐 버려 바로 질래네 벽에 살래 뱀부터는 용
Lesson.
근데 뱀부서 그러 자가 개받는 용어는 주인담은 되네 아니 다 소지 출 준수네 이제로다 근데 가자지는 도냐래 제선이 그 라강지 하냐래 제서 라강지 컴바지 놀냐래 제고 말이스 아니 하냐래 제게 야 말이스 도냐래 제가 디코즈 나루 로다 뭐요 말이스 대용나 아니 최본 걸래 아니 제와시말래 최매비 살지는 그 얘가요 말이스 아니 런던 라데네 대답이네 가자지도 냐래 제네 인디그래 하냐래 제네 인디그래 교화매부터 고도 그래스 최본 걸래 가도 그래스
Okay. Tuchana. So this during the time of Atisha, something had happened in Tibet. There had become a misunderstanding of the teachings, and there was an idea that sutra and tantra teachings were mutually exclusive. That they could not. There was no common locus between the two, and they one would either practice sutra or practice tantra, and that they actually had different temples for the practitioners of each of these vehicles because they found such mutual exclusion in these two. So this is actually a great misdeed, and this is called the misdeed of abandoning the Dharma, because the practitioners of the sutra felt that the tantric practitioners were incorrect, and the tantric practitioners felt that the sutric practitioners were incorrect. So both parties were creating the misdeeds of abandoning the Dharma. So Atisha, and each of these schools had, each of these two separate trains of thought had wrong views contained within them. So basically what happened in Tibet is we saw the teachings of Bon, and then various Indian scholars came and brought the teachings of Buddhism, and over the course of time they were contaminated. So Atisha was able to clear up any of these misunderstandings with this text to show that there was no mutual exclusion between Sutra and Tantra, and that they do have common locus between the two. And there were many, he was able to dispel many of the faults and that were contained in the practice at that time in Tibet.
there is a that zamli chumobuyo, ribe, many ribe. Chukangalo Jason Rodio, Chukangalo Tandusa de Jason Duduaris. Then Naji and Sanjig and Dongha teaching him a Peshamu de the Sukutangalo, London on Duduaris, London Jason Ramaris, and then Sanjig Peshakan Dundade, and then London on Duduaris. But then Levashi Jason is.
So this text is compared to the ocean. In the world, there are many rivers. So all of these rivers end up in an ocean. And this text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, is compared to the ocean, which contains all of the rivers of various texts and explanations that were given.
What is the London go down Larish Saji to the Yoruba? Soro Malu Danga Chawat, Jayugumba Delanyaba, Nisho Chimbi answer Lejanson, the Ishi, Jabu Kibi June, getting to maintain with Dambachu, Chibusun Lanji Rimbai, Iram Ruju in 6 years, Chibusun Jugune, and then Tab Karzugur Sanji Saltriade, and then Keba ina Kangalo Gabaji Gris, Keba Saman Gabaji Gris.
Dene the long,
Long the Lari Dinero Marbe.
dene Yanjer Surona, Lamran Durangi long.
Soro Malu Damba Chawata, Jayu Gumba de la Nebata, Nishu Chambi Ansa Legends, Tishri, Jabu Kebi June, Kenen to Mete with Damba, Jibus Lanji Rimba, Iram Ruju and Sujius. What is the Marbe?
Donda Gare.
Dunda what the Marbe? Then Tal London Lunatic in the Penchu waters, and this Haji Kagi Dunda the little Habishe tours, Jayukuma de la Neva said Mara, Takichi said. Then Soro Malu Dangat Chai Chawas, and then London Latene, and the Sanjig and Do Nga Sama, and then Gazaji Sanji going to be Toyimbo tours, Joyimbo tours, Takishi Zaro. Then Chubunga Le Pont to Gris, Chubunga Le Labajin Pont to Gris, Dotan, Hal, and the Karzugore, Doyabumar and Hayabumar is the Lota to Sukungalo, and the Le Labajin Landella then the Pont to Gris. Nisha Chemo Rangasun to Chivas.
So we can find a quote in the abbreviated Stages of the Path by Lama Tsongkhapa that I don't have the exact quote of, so if one would like to afterwards, we can find it in a text. I don't want to misquote Lama Tsongkhapa. Do you know the quote? Do you have
he named the 4 sections, the greatnesses of the Dharma that appear in the preliminary of the Lamrim outlines. So you find it in veneration in the palm of your hand, of the things that he mentioned.
But in the Lamrim, he gave a quote from the Lamrim Dudan, the abbreviated Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. Okay, so what do you know what the quote itself was? That's what I was trying to. Basically, it was the we can find it afterwards because we do, I believe, have the actual text here in the Lamrim Dudan. So independence upon the lamp for the path to enlightenment. All great scholars agree that one has the method to be able to abandon wrong views. One will be able to ascertain and understand the method to be able to abandon wrong views and give up the misdeed of abandoning the Dharma and so forth. So there's a quote in the Lamrim Dudan that, like I said, we'll find later that correlates with this particular idea.
어제 다드는 아주 된마 가르치고래. 집에서 가라지 집에 난 대진 가도 레디오 알았어. 대진 가도 들렸더니 상주선 로장주다. 되네 주진질 하발하비주. 띵은진질 하발하비주. 시력을 하발하비주 송 말봐. 다른 아주 시력 가도 되더스 말봐.
So in the text, the lamp for the path to enlightenment, we've arrived at the section of the great scope. And these are the great vehicle teachings, the Mahayana teachings. So these teachings we've learned are on the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta, and the 3 highest higher trainings, the highest higher training in ethics, highest higher training in concentration, and the highest higher training in wisdom. So we've arrived at that third, the highest higher training in wisdom in this section of the great vehicle.
어제 다드네 가서 되네 가정 가서 라동 공사 가도 말해도 알았어 말봐. 라동 공사 되네 라동 다른 가서 라동 어디 가도 해요 봐.
So previously in class, we went over a section and gave an explanation of special insight.
아니 안게 나중에 둘 해도 돼.
56.
어디 이제 타지루다. 너 그저 뭐야 생는 거래.
So number 56 says, the great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. Resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space-like non-conceptuality manifests clearly.
어제 나도 레션 시반데 나버도 두비 다니데 대실 말로 두고봐 냥한데 버추이노스 어디 대가도 될 가르사 나도 레존 세반데 나도 레존 세반데 당가서 로아리도 동행도 좀 말해 로아리도 동행도 주 간라 되는 종아르스나 나버도바 댄징 나도라 되는 종바레스 댄징 나도 에너르게 주시발라 되네 안에 녀몬제 레사네 안 로아리도 동행도 좀 간가 용요아레스 말해 나도 레존 세반데스 어디지 라잖아.
So here it says, okay, so the great ignorance of conceptuality. Here, ignorance refers to the conceptuality or the conceptual thought that grasps at true existence. It's by dependence upon or this grasping at true existence that the afflictions and actions take place. This ignorance of great ignorance of conceptuality, the greatest ignorance of conceptuality refers to the grasping at true establishment, or the conceptuality that grasps at true existence or establishment.
어드네 가르소고 댄진당 안에 레던 녀모바 봄비 타바데는 간데서 도고 그래. 네 랑가르 공고르슬라바이나 안에 나바도비 다니데 디실 말료도 봄바 냥엔데바 주이노스 안에 다 가서 그래 레던 녀모바다 동해 보야 그터 주도 줘봐대 안에 주나 내바마 줘봐 최근걸로 댄데 인상 내바마 줘봐레스 내바마 줘봐대 데멜라 미네 아니 시네 돈이라 메비 시네다 돈이라 메비 하동도도 야네야도 공바이나 데네 이제 레다뇨 모바다 등에 보면 타바도 그랬어 양년대바 주인노스 타바 용거 타바도 그랬어 what does it mean 말해
The great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. Resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. So, in dependence upon the opponent of the grasping at true existence or true establishment, one is able to achieve the state of liberation or nirvana. One is able to achieve this state through utilizing emptiness and gaining a state of calm abiding, which uses as its object of observation emptiness, and achieving a state of special insight, which uses as its object of observation emptiness. So one achieves this understanding of the lack of true establishment of things by using formulas or analysis, by using formulas and analysis, such as things dependently originate. Because of this, they are not truly established. So here we have a formula that leads us to the lack of true establishment of phenomena. And once one achieves this non-conceptual state and is able to achieve the state of calm abiding and special insight, and further, then one is able to achieve the state of nirvana, a space-like non-conceptuality that manifests clearly. So all of these liberations and so forth are possible in dependence upon the eradication of the action and afflictions, which leads to cyclic existence. And if these are eradicated by the opponent of the non-mistaken view of the lack of true establishment of all phenomena.
chuna deba druba denzin tuba loshires nandu loshires chuna deba druba yomare deba druba membala deba druba zibi lo tuba yinza tuba loshire diores but na taba dre yimba de yomares taba dre yimba zibi tuba de tuba loshires but denaji chuna deba druba yomare deba druba zibi denzin de tuba loshire diores marbe de kuyu zawales
Yanger surana. the
Na
chi
tu se
means.
ta na tu se la de ku su to ba sa de ro ta na tu se ya de chuna de ba ju ban me den zit na tu lo de res na tu de la ne na bar tu ba se ya de lo lo she res chuna de ba ju ba yo ma res de ba ma ju ba la de ba ju ban zin bi tu ba yin zang ne tu ba lo she res pa na ta ba ju de zin lo de tu ba lo she yin ba na jin ne chuna de ba ju ban zin lo de ya ne tu ba lo she de yo res de ku yi za wa res de nge za wa res.
So the root of cyclic existence, the root of suffering, is the conceptuality that grasps at true establishment. This is a mistaken view, a wrong view. This mistaken view is mistaken in the same way that one grasps at a rope, believing that the rope is a snake. And so the mistaken view there is that the rope is not a rope, it is a snake. So this is a wrong consciousness or mistaken view. So the conceptuality that grasps at true establishment or true existence is the root of suffering and is the root of cyclic existence. So it makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. So the root of cyclic existence is the concept that grasps at true establishment.
Come in.
Please come in.
Oh, the version.
Hey, John, you want to grab a cushion for this gentleman?
Do.
And then make sure
Just to let you know, if you haven't been here before, we're going over a text called The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment by a master called Atisha, and Rinpoche is explaining what the text means. And there'll be a copy of the text over there for you.
Okay, that what then is on the inside. That chuna deva maduba is, chuna deva maduba, tende deva maduba is, and then deva maduba ina, and the deva maduba, and then susum is. Deva maduba susum versana, and the chuna deva maduba, tende insa deva maduba sude, and the sanjig son you are, sanjig and do you go son you are, hag goes son you are, don't gender do son down. Shira Nibutu no lule, and Chuna de Bamaru Sundua, Pai Agagir, Mime, Names at the Suki, Chuna de Bamaru Sundua, Marbe, do, and then Jende Dusun to Son Yorua. That's on the Mazebi, Hankosoyatene, Chuna de Bamaru Son Yoris. Then, and the Canderisana Tananga to Tawa de Tatayan Chundenji, Nadu Mari Chembote, Kujazu Tonashis. The Dayan Jonation not do Mari Chamber de Kujazu Tongashi.
This go ngay de la yin.
Okay.
So this idea that phenomena are not truly established because they dependently originate came from somewhere. Who was the one that pronounced this? And we can say that the Buddha is the one who stated these things, that phenomena dependently originate, therefore they are not truly established. And we can find these quotes such as these in sutric teachings and tantric teachings. In the Heart Sutra we find seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. We see quotes such as these, and in Tantra we can find this as well. So that's where we left off. I just didn't want to forget it. So in the 100,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra and the 20,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, we can find these as well.
Oje tazan mazebi hangi tene pecha tusu nalule ya chuna deba maruba sonja yuwares te antanda de ngaju te inchi tsaji loja ruchi ngaju nadu mari chenbo te kuyi karibe.
We just read that, didn't we? Please tell me we did. Ngaju ngadun. Lama ngaju ngaju de delpa dansar.
Dansar nadu mari chenbo te kuyi jasu tongwashi. Domen Tenzin la denpa nakajin domen se di chinsar be.
Di chinsar.
Ya tanda
Oh, they're similar. Oh, hold on. In the Tibetan, they're similar. I might have been reading.
What did you run out of the young Jordan do it? The young Jordan J.
But the Jatso,
Which are the true things that the young Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Sutonashis, the young Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Sutonashis.
but before Ngachungadru.
Yangan de Bachuin, not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Suton. The young Jordan J said that not today.
Ngachungadru. NGK.
Didn't know medical in she can do it.
NGK, not Ngachungadru, the Jatso.
The young Jordan J. Kuja Suton do it.
Kujatsu, Ngachungadru,
Do it.
NGK.
Do it. Then I to be a little shading, sir. The no shade mero. The young Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Suton and then Kuja Suton, the young Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Suton. Tome Tenzin la never Nakajin 2 meses. The young Jordan J. and then the ancient way. The young Jordan J. Jordan Shajatuba. The young Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja Suton.
Yeah, it's right here. The Ngachungadru, we can got it. There.
Del not do Marie Chamber to Matumua. The young Jordan J. said the Tubudua. Not do Marie Chamber to CG.
Okay. I almost had a nervous breakdown because that's what. Okay, there's two texts we're having a little bit of trouble with because Deta Yang. You have the text too, right? Deta Yang ni Jomden Ji.
Not do Marie Chamber to
Deta Yang de Jomden. I don't have this.
Jordan J.
The same printout.
Right.
Not do Marie Chamber de Dua.
Okay.
Not do Marie Chamber to say the Najungadul Dua. Gold CG Chedia. The Dayan Jordan J. The Dayan Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber de see the Chedua. What the learner did that? The Dayan Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber to Kuja to Tomashi on du and then Karsa. Chuna de Badu ones with the Zilla Dene, Kuala Kuyu 2 de and the Dayan Jordan J. Chansi Jordan de Son Yoris. The Dayan Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber this. Then not do Mariba Tenzin Chamber Tege, Geshe Lharampa, Kuyu Geshe Lharampa, and then Kazazu Kual Kuduaras, what the ancient Tajulu.
When it Deta Yang ni Jomden Ji.
The Dayan Jordan J. The Dayan Jordan J. Tamal Machines as one. Not do Lish Sebande, Naba to be Danite, the Shemalu Tubo Yang de Bachuinos, Denzing not do Mugina Tabares, Tabaris Morova. That not do the Kuala Kuyu to the and Susan was in the Sanjig Sumbaris, the Dayan Jordan J.
Okay.
The won't be Tabatu to the Sanjig Sumbaris, the Dayan Jordan J. Not do Marie Chamber de Kuja Sutonashis.
Okay.
Not do Mariba, Denzi Mariba, the Zawashevala Dene, and then Kuala Kugoris, the Kuyu Zawaris, Yola Junigan and the Tuma Maribaris, Kuyu Zawaris, what is one that.
Okay, so I'm going to start from 55 and read it through. Rinpoche has a line that we don't have, so the numbers, I don't know what happened, but I'll figure it out later.
There's just one line that seems to be missing between 55 and 56. It says,
It's
even thus the Buddha said.
Even though, yeah, I was.
And then the beginning of 56.
So the nature of this worldly existence, which comes from conceptualization, is conceptuality. Thus, the elimination of conceptuality is the highest state of nirvana. The great ignorance of conceptuality. Thus, the Buddha said, the great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. So that's where the stanza ends over here. So, so here, the grasping at true establishment, the conception that grasps at true establishment, this mistaken view, is the root of cyclic existence. This is what causes one to again and again be forced into the ocean of cyclic existence. So here, the great ignorance of conceptuality is the ignorance which grasps at the true establishment of phenomena.
It's not
very, Rinpoche saying, it's not very difficult, it's only a few words.
Let me
see his numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teta yan chondenjis ta kanten de marwa tenda teshe deres tenda teshe de doha denzing maribala den khol ko wares denzing shenyu me ba deme tu bi shera gomba la den deme tu bi shera toni la mine shene da la ton de gomba ina ane le dan nyomo ba ane denzing bombe tabatu to gores tabatu de tabatu to gores sanje son gores marba de du ko so son yores kan ko so son yores insare.
So the Buddha has pronounced in both sutra and tantra that the grasping at true establishment can be abandoned through realizing emptiness by having calm abiding and special insight, which utilizes as its object of observation emptiness. And through these methods, one can eradicate the action and afflictions which are the root of cyclic existence, which cause one to fall into the cyclic existence. So once these are abandoned, one is able to achieve the state of liberation. And this idea can be found in both sutra and tantric teachings. Sutric and tantric teachings.
O kuyi jaso tongwa ta kanten de ngasun de katul ngaso teso remido trelen ngaso tendi la juni yoro tendi la juni toma mariba niban duji jele sumba nashi jiba mezo ngaba jichi droba reba dumba tsawa wadu sule de mudo marba ne tendi la juni gono kwal kuyi tu tendi la juni gono kwal dobi tu taba tobi tu wadu su ngalo tenolu zodo sa marba rabundowa.
So the 12 links of dependent origination, the ignorance, which is the first link, and do you know the links memorized off the top of your head? Ignorance,
karma
and action. Sumba.
Conditional karma, consciousness.
Yes.
That's the third name and form.
The meaning.
다 제무도 때문에 땡땡 연락 중에 그걸 해야 되는 거 차상화 맞았는데 그래.
이네데.
도마 말이봐. 니반 뒤지길래. 도마 말이봐. 에너로와.
Ignorance.
니반 뒤지길래
action.
카마. 손바 나시 말이야.
Consciousness.
바샤자서 생각.
name and form.
제바 메주로 메주.
Name and form.
야. 나바 지치. 와 땡게 땡땡 연락 중에 두서 땡 해건도 왔어.
And the next is sense sources.
Sense sources.
Sense sources and this
Contact, feeling, clinging.
Contact, feeling, clinging.
And so forth, up to 7.
Yeah, yeah. Rinpoche only went to 7. So the 12 links of dependent origination, the explanation of how those create cyclic existence is contained within this and is very similar to this. The same ignorance which drives the 12 links of dependent origination which creates cyclic existence is the same here, and the 12 links can be implicitly contained within this as well. And the reversal of them so that one can achieve the opposite of their effect being liberation.
Then China Demba Maruba, then the image in China Demba Maruba, the Shesona, Telamini Sheneta Haton, then the Gumba Ina, and Toma Mariba Pontu, Niban Dujigale, Soba Nashila Soba, then do la Dungangi change it, then do la Juni Pone, and Tabatuba Yungaris. What the next with something in the Marbe?
Then the Tambo Yanja Surala.
That China Demba Maruba Tusuna,
and Toma
Mariba Pontugre, Niban Dujigale. 네, 동에 땡땡 연락 중에 보내 타바도 로도 땡땡 중에.
So if one has the understanding that phenomena are not truly established, then one has the ability to abandon the ignorance and then abandon the action, and so forth within the 12 links. And if one abandons these, then one is able to achieve the state of liberation.
나도 말이 쳔보데 쿠이자수 동화시스 도메 딘진 나도 말이 쳔보데 쿠이자수 동그레스 동에 코알 쿠이 주시 그래서 말바 다드네 추나 데바 마루바 시베 돈이 두비 셰로 종소나 데네 되게 도메 딘진 라네바 나카진도 도메세스 도메 딘진 라네바 도바 메바 추나 데바 마루바 두비 셰로데 추나 데바 마루바 두비 셰네다 사동도 야네야도 공바이나 데네 나카진도 도메세스 나카진도 안데 가르사 도바 메바 데바 마루바 도바 쓰고 말베 어디 도발라 데네 아니 동네도 본토 그레스 나카진도 도메세스.
So makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence, resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space-like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. So recognizing that phenomena are not truly established, having the wisdom realizing emptiness through achieving the state of calm abiding and special insight, which utilizes as its object of observation the lack of true establishment of phenomena, one can achieve the state of a non-conceptual stabilization and space-like non-conceptuality. So one can achieve these these types of states, and one by having the calm abiding and special insight, which uses as its object of observation emptiness. So these concentrations, I just want to make sure. Concentrations are achieved through the various steps of concentration levels, calm abiding and special insight and so forth.
나도 말이 전부터 kuyi jasu 동화시 서와 덴질라 데네 안노 코알 코고 와르스 도메 덴질라 네바 송도 데메 도베 띵겐진데 셔러 연애도 공부이나 나카진도 도메세스 나카진도 가르수 그래 레다 뇨모바도 동에 보네 타바토바 용거에서 니사레
Then Nanka-chan.
나칼 도리 메바로 나카 스벨 도리요 말어. 대나지 죽은 걸로 대바 도바요 말스. 강걸로 대바 마루 말스. 어떻게도 말. 나가진도 도메세스.
So here the space-like non-conceptuality, because space is vast and endless, the non-conceptual understanding of the lack of true establishment of phenomena is vast and limitless as well. So this space-like non-conceptuality, the reason that is compared to space is because of that. That's what I asked Rinpoche. So resting in non-conceptual stabilization, so achieving a single-pointed concentration that utilizes as its object of observation emptiness will allow one to achieve the state of the wisdom realizing emptiness, which will then allow one to achieve the state of liberation. So liberation is possible if the great ignorance of conceptuality is abandoned, because this ignorance which grasps at the true establishment of phenomena causes us to fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. So if one then has the wisdom realizing emptiness, then liberation can be achieved.
That deseni naga tori kato mega naga geseni marbe tori kato mega naga geseni res dumachi nagal tori ba naru nagal dun togumdo tori meba ro den naji chögngallo neba dubi toba yo mare chögngal neba maruba de naga namres naga tori kato mega naga namres dumachi naga tori kato mega dumachi naga geseni marbe nagal toba yo maro danduse 나가고
Not
동바로
penetratable. Yeah.
나갈 토바 매바든 두마시지 나가리스 대나지 추나 대바주 토바 매바 대바 마루바 돈이리스 들라 미네 시네들 하동 고바이나 되네 동해 본도 그래서 어떠선데
Yine dumajegi nanka gitsene the shingi.
나가진도 도메 세스 나가진도 나가도 빠잡으로 나가 두마시지 나가도 토리 가자지 매가 두마시 나갈 토야요 말어 토나 나루도 토고 말어 나루 가시 제거로 나갈 나루 토고 모도 토바 매번도 나갈 토바 매바데 두마시지 나가레스 but 나지 안에 추나 대바주 토바 매바 대바 마루바 돈이레스 들라 미네 시네도 하통 공바이나 안에 동에 본도 그레스 어디서 인자
So one is able to achieve suffering, achieve suffering, achieve the abandonment of suffering through recognizing the lack of true establishment of phenomena and achieving that understanding through calm abiding and special insight. So the definition of uncompounded space is not obstructed. And I've also seen unpenetratable, if that's a word, or not able to be penetrated. For some reason, I've seen that also. But not obstructed is the more common definition of uncompounded space. So uncompounded space is not obstructed. Then Garshene, that's the only thing I didn't get. What's the similarity between uncompounded space and
unobstructed space is like a metaphor, an analogy for the wisdom realizing emptiness, just as unobstructed. If a space is uncompounded, it's unobstructed. An airplane couldn't go through something obstructed, so in the way an airplane can go through space, it's because space is unobstructed because of that definition. In the same way, the non-conceptual wisdom realizing emptiness, realizing that things are not truly established, is non-conceptual. It is that non-conceptuality is like the unobstructedness of space, something like that.
So,
Does that make sense?
So it doesn't, but the non-conceptuality is the same. The non-conceptual understanding of the wisdom realizing emptiness or the lack of true establishment of phenomena is the same as not the definition of uncompounded space, not obstructed. So I guess I'm just Does that make sense?
나가서 두마시지 나가 토리 가서지 내가 두마시 나가 레슬러서로
릴랍사.
토리 가서 나갈 토리 모두 토리 매받은 두마시 나가서 그러와 최근 걸로 내버주 도바요 말이스 내가 마루바도 돈이레스 되니 잡으레스 안에 나가들 토리 매받을 두마시 나가 토리 가서지 내가 두마시 나기 생이로 된나지 주나 내버주요 말어 내버주 도바요 말어 내버주바 매버로 Dembadruba meba doni res. Dembadrubi tuba meba doni res. Dembadrubi tuba meba doni res. Tela mi bi shene de latung kuna. Ane ignoral nön res. Dene lel nön res. Nyomul nön res. Kalegal dongen ga res. Nyomo juna malu jitula tali shon lu tongju. Dan di yu tu shene nenju ba yi dan go ba shis. Oten da mundu. 동에도 그걸로 레라 되는 숑버스 레드 뉴모발 되는 숑요레스 뉴모바데 안 덴진나돌 되는 숑요레스 안에 대인소자 안에 내주바되게 추노 데바마루바 덴진지 나도 메버스 그러바 데바마루바도 공발라 되네 안에 에너럴 너그레스 엔트닷 되는 뉴몰 냐분도 그레스 레일 냐분도 그레스 동엘 냐분도 칼레칼레 가노도 손 말베
Okay, I have all of it. Still, I just don't have the metaphor. Do you have the metaphor, though? Okay, so, you know how everyone in this room knows how I am about so one has the ability to eradicate the action and afflictions if their powering force is eradicated. So if the causal factors of the karma and afflictions are eradicated, then they can no longer produce the suffering and so forth. So if one has the wisdom realizing emptiness, and one understands the lack of true establishment of phenomena, and has that realization brought about through calm abiding and special insight, which utilizes as its object of observation emptiness, then one is able to reverse the pattern of being thrown into cyclic existence and achieve the state of liberation. So this state of liberation is achieved by first eradicating the ignorance which causes the karma and afflictions which cause the cyclic existence. One can achieve the state of liberation by eradicating the causal factors of its opposite.
어제 다 대지가 나도 코알 쿠비 추다 데메 투비 셰롤라 때네 돈이 투비 송라 때네 아니 타바 투비 추데 아니 사지가 너 맞에 아니 삼부자게 주 거서 송요라스 삼부자의 주스 tantra 삼부자의 주스야 주로와 어디 거서도 송요라스 너 맞에 하가 거서 송요라스 하 가바 송요라스나 삼부자의 주스 삼부자의 주스 tantra 주로와 어떤
Tantra, the Beijing means
삼부자의 주
secret sound.
삼부자의 주스로 삼부자의 주
Text.
Yes.
삼부자의 주를 송요라스 다체 말했더니 송안디비 자유 주당 아니 뒤주가 자주당 뒤후가 자유 주당 주 단질 주나 대바 모르고 송요로다 삼부자의 주를 송요라스 사지가 버차 삼부자세야 근도 주 tantrajuwares dele chuna demo maru sonjuwares deba dubanzemi denji koal kores deme tubi shero la tene koal tutugres ane saji ge tantra goso sonjuwares do mazi tantra goso sonjuwares.
So if one is to not mention sutra because we can find many occurrences of the pronouncements of Buddha in sutra where one understands that things are not truly established and they are empty in this type of wisdom. But the Buddha also, in the tantric texts, explain the same thing. So in the text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, Atisha gives an example of a tantric text and was Sambudra, is that what the name of it? Sambudra Chu. Ju. So it's the I'm not sure. Sambo is the Yedangini Sambo.
예나이지 말에 대표샤가 메리 삼부자의 주스 근데 배샤 레센주로 성안디비 tantra 예멘다가 tantra 삼부자의 주스 어디니.
So that's the actual name of the text. I'm not familiar with it. I apologize. So it's an example is given of a text where in this commentary, an example is given of a tantric text where one can find this same thing. The phenomena are not truly established, and the lack of true establishment of all phenomena. And this goes across the board. If we look at the Guhya Samaja texts, or the Kalachakra texts, or the Chakra Sambhava texts, or any of the other tantric texts, we can find that this idea is indispensable in all of them.
What the song is that 내가 담아도 지바리시라 가가 말해서 칼리카브 말해서 the 치대 tru들만도 가 지바리스 때.
Gosh.
코알 덴질라 되는 코알 코버레스 데메도 비셔럴 되는 코아준 타바투투 그레스 데 바신 티벌 송요레스 사지 하 거수 송거레스 가바송 삼부자의 주 거수 송요레스 네 나바모도 존레 송요레스 what the song is that.
So we can find that idea that the lack, the misapprehension, the mistaken view that grasps at true establishment causes cyclic existence in both sutra and tantra. And the examples are given of the texts in which we can find them in, but they are, these ideas are indispensable in all of the various paths. So the explanation of how cyclic existence is created through the grasping at true establishment is given, as well as how one can achieve liberation by understanding the lack of true establishment of phenomena. So the opposite of the misunderstanding of true establishment of phenomena create the misunderstanding of the true establishment of phenomena creates cyclic existence, whereas the non-mistaken view, which recognizes the lack of true establishment of phenomenon, creates liberation. So we can find these ideas in both sutra and tantric texts.
다 간텐데니 이사마르베 다 간텐 가서 추크숑걸로 데마만 루버리 텐데 인사 데마만 루버리 데메도 비시러 데메도 비시러데 라니 지보 타바 두비시도 데메도 비시러 공바이나 데네 메린스 고서 마르베 테멜런 루버스 라니 지보 타바 두비시도 안 돈이 공바이나 안니 되다 라젤 루버스 마르베 어떤데 대시잖아 고대에서 마르베
So this familiarization with the wisdom realizing emptiness in order to achieve the state of nirvana or liberation for oneself alone falls into the category of the medium scope or beings of medium capacity. So if one wishes to achieve the state of nirvana or individual, that's not a good way to say it, nirvana, achieve the state of cessation for oneself alone, or nirvana for oneself alone, then the wisdom realizing emptiness is necessary, and this falls into the category of Hinayana teachings, or medium scope.
오지 다 동해를 산 가르서 동해지 동해던 주유 동해던 차반 뒤지 동해다 제가 나시게 동해라서부터 산단도 는 가서 동해를 가보요 말이스 네 난주가 상바제 용거스 난주가 상바제 용도 안에 나로 집 동해를 타나 타나냐 가르서 그래 나로 집 동해를 타 이체도 안에 돈이 두비 싫어다 대지도 어떤 공부이나 안에 그 테멜랑도 하고 그래서
So if one recognizes the three types of suffering, the suffering of change, the suffering of suffering, the pervasive compounded suffering, the suffering of being separated from the pleasant, and so forth, the state of renunciation can be achieved, or the desire to wish to definitely get out can be achieved through the wish to abandon suffering in general. So one can achieve the state of one achieves a state of renunciation by through analysis of the various types of suffering, and then wishes to definitely get out of cyclic existence for oneself alone. So it's necessary for this being to have the wisdom realizing emptiness in order to achieve that state of nirvana, solitary nirvana.
다데네 수수 동해링에 반주행가지고 상바 이제라 메비 희지 첨부다 샴바다 상주게 생을 든들로는 제바이나 안 대전을 그래서 말베.
So if one takes that same wish to definitely get out for oneself alone and turns that towards others, and develops love and compassion, then this becomes the great vehicle, the Teichen Gichu. Then this becomes the, one is heading towards the Mahayana, Teichen Gichu, going to the Mahayana.
어때네 대바침이 로장주들 준데 명아 뒤주고는 로장주던 다제냐바 제고는 로장주니 아는 아주 사모우슈사 버렸어.
So, and to achieve the state of mind that aspires to enlightenment, we've gone over two lineages of causal factors so many times, the 7-point cause and effect for achieving the state of bodhicitta, and the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. So we've gone over this many times, and these are two causal factors for achieving bodhicitta.
어제 다샤주선 로장행게 티베탄부디즘 카니 용거스 안에 오븐 노브지다 오븐 튜브지 용거스 말베 샹선 원네다 티베탄부디즘 오븐 노브다 오븐 튜브니 용거스 오븐 튜브이나 안에 샤주선 마제 공돈이 도토 말스 안에 공샤주게 공 샤주게 마시 데데저 준데 명아 뒤주고는 생고네 안에 샤주선 줄 마제 버돈이 도토 말스 네, 돈 샤주선 줄 제자도 전에 돈이 라그레스.
네네.
알레 들어.
완두 네네.
완두 되게 안에 샤주선 줄 제 안에 돈이 쇼고도 거래서 말배.
냠도.
on 쇼고
쇼고.
on 되게 되네 샤주센 마지 공 돈이 또 사버려. 돈이 또 안에 샤주센 로장 샤주센 줄 쇼고지 그래서.
When we speak of practitioners of the great vehicle, there are, and we speak of bodhisattvas, there are two types. There are bodhisattvas with sharp mental faculties and bodhisattvas with dull mental faculties. So a bodhisattva of dull mental faculties is one that must first generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, first achieve that generation. But that generation is not imbued with or combined with emptiness. That is practiced after the actual generation of bodhicitta takes place for the bodhisattva of dull capacity. So he or she first achieves the mind that aspires to enlightenment or has a realization of Mahayana mind generation, and then begins to study emptiness. Whereas a bodhisattva of sharp mental faculties has already an understanding of emptiness and before they actually generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So the difference between these two types of Mahayana practitioners are that the bodhisattva of dull capacity must studies emptiness after the generation of bodhicitta, and the bodhisattva of sharp mental faculties generates bodhicitta after they have achieved the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom which understands emptiness.
Tiba region open noble the peji and the shambata nijita or the sumaji doni to sabaris and Nanyuga Samba maji peji doni to sayoris. Ko open noble in dungele tando Nanyuga Samba, dungele taya yoba. 동el 타이 타바 요바 체메 마주바 데시도 그 오번 노베 인상 가지고 선바 지금 말았어 그 돈이 두베 달라 되네 안 대지 세주 대지 본 도군 도에 뭐도에 대지 두베 타바서 그 시절 요다메 네 시절 매난 되네 가서 그래 타바 두베 지도 그 갈래자고 말어 그 오번 노베 인상 안에 대지도 녀모범 타바 요다메 타바 두베 땅달라 되네 안 타바시 타바시에서는 전에 안에 그 돈이 또 비셔라다는 샤주센 로장 워르스.
The Rinpoche Nyunyun. 강인선에 the mambo lana.
알아 준준도 알아.
The mambo 강인선에 가 인지께 단 벽에 있잖아.
어부 다지 티바 챔비레지 어부 노부 주요로. 노부 되게 베지 간주 삼바 마지 공을 베지 그 돈이 또 사요르스. 간주 삼바 동엘 탄도 삼바 들어와. 동el 탄도 sambat 제발라 동el 타 요방엘 셰 거스고 오버노베 인상 동el 타바 요도메 타바도 요나 안 타바들 로종제나 가룬 토주 요도메 토야 요바도 그 체메 조소나 셰소나 안 제네 타바도 인간 sambat 로종 그랬어 어때 마지바도 그 드네 인간 sambat 로종 모두와 오버노베 인상 Then chosen de Lekayona Amara de Lekachudo, Lekachune, Lekadel Pen, Giabuja, Domo Tomutaji, Pentu, man, Lekachi Marota. Only what the Nabu is some what the Nabu is.
Then the Wang Tango Nipa. I always get these two confused.
This is just the sharp faculties.
Okay, so the being of sharp mental faculties first checks, is there the possibility of Buddhahood or liberation, or isn't there the possibility of Buddhahood or liberation? So I lost it again. Did Sikh Tamche Shing you? Then Kali like Sikh Denenge Lagin. Sikh Kashe.
다 오브 노브스 그 오너로 오브 노블 가르사
sharp mental bodhisattva of sharp mental faculty.
티바 쳔비레 bodhisattva 샤주센 마지 공르다 샤주센 마지 공 오브 노브지요로 그 오브 노브 되게 안에 샤주센스 그 줄지야 도움도 샤주센 요도메 타바 요도메 안에 타바데 요바 쳔메 마루바 데시도 그 타바 되네 걸로 내주고 상바 장고 말보다
Okay. So a being of sharp mental faculties first engages in analysis to make sure that liberation is possible and that the actual achievement of bodhicitta is possible, because there is no reason to develop renunciation or to develop these things if they are not possible to achieve. So the being of sharp mental faculties first engages in analysis to see if these things are possible before achieving the state of renunciation, because it's not necessary to renounce something if there isn't a possibility of achieving the state of liberation.
Okay.
You would first check it to make sure that that was the proper career move for you.
답은 답아서게 가서 뒤질 준 템바도 템바 니도스 번나가서 신사는 도서 걸로 주면 템바레스 신데 신 번가서 신을 찾아봐이나 신을 도마매 버스 대하마 신디 신하말 되는 중 신하말 되는 중 도마매 버스 이나야 신의 준도 템바요 말레스 신을 만다봐이나 신되는 cil도와 신되는 매바 차는도와 알레데지라주다 녀녀녀라다.
So when we look at a piece of wood, for instance, we can say, or a tree, we can say that this actual tree or wood, it's the same word, existed since beginningless time. But its causes are not very stable. It's not a very stable thing because it can be burned very easily and then disappear. So the causal factors for this tree, which has been beginningless, are not very stable.
But then I think any dancing in or down, any lay down, your mobile to the Golo Matembares, doing it to the Golo Tembares, Matembares.
But the grasping at true existence that we have is also not very stable.
Denzin down, your mobile to temple, Denzin Lulu shares, Lulu shares the whole temple matters. They meant to be shared the Luton Lot Temperes, June Temperes.
So the grasping at true existence and the karma and afflictions is not something that's stable, whereas the opposite of it, the understanding of the wisdom that understands that things are not truly established, is stable. Because the grasping at true establishment is a mistaken view and can be eradicated because of its instability.
That demet to be shared the and Denzil never do wars, Denzil Nebo, Numable never do wars, and the Kalegale Denzin Dindugre, and the Denzin May Sivan Rabres, they meant to be shared the Mundabares, and the Denzin down, Numobatan, to the Kalegale, and the Gane, and Dunge Mebatan. Nyomu meba na ane enor meba yungres del tabasagres marbe.
So if one is able to eradicate, come to a place where there is a lack of suffering, and the afflictions and the grasping at true existence are eradicated, then one is able to achieve the state of liberation. So it's the wisdom realizing emptiness, which is very similar to a fire, which has the ability to burn away the tree or the wood's capacity to go on. Likewise, the wisdom realizing emptiness has the ability to destroy and eradicate the grasping at true establishment and the afflictions and the ignorance which cause the cyclic existence, and their cessation then leads to liberation.
Tabana tabadubi tal tamebe nameji pombo tamebe nameji pombo dunge pombo to zorowa rangi region sebi riyuares ne ku ju meba chaba yuares yoru jusen karesana dunge gi jo ane denzin del nyebo duwas nyebo ju iril neji nyebo to den yobe je nanden go de marbe tabadubi ta derwa 나주 동행지 봉부도 요러와 동행지 봉부데 그 갈래갈래 매바 차요 아레스 매바 조토 그레스 조토 비주센 가르스나 동행 그주 댄진 레디오 로로시레스 들니에부 요르스 엔트다 된 가르스도.
So why is it that the grasping at true establishment can be eradicated? It can be because there is an antidote to it, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness. The opponent or antidote to the grasping at true establishment is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And because this mistaken view, because this is a mistaken view, it is not stable and can be come to a conclusion.
Wa ta nga zu xiang ba dang ni ji san da lo zang bu tu su nga lo lo tön tön res da su nga lo jun ten bo res ka le gong ge yin na an sa ji sal ru tu res.
So if we have such things as love and compassion and a positive mind, this is a non-mistaken view and will eventually lead us to Buddhahood.
Wa ji lo xie dang an ne lo tön tön wa de che ba yo res lo xie de ko lo xie yin za ko nie bu yo res lo tön tön de nie bu yo ma res ko jun me ba cha tu ma res.
So when we look at mistaken view and non-mistaken view, there is an opponent or antidote to a mistaken view, but we cannot find an opponent or antidote for a non-mistaken view.
Na ne za wa le ten do ma yi de ju la ge su se shi ro ten do ma yi de ju la ge su se shi ta ba du be tang da ten go ta ba du be.
Namgyal.
Nan den ge ta ba du be tang da ten go re. Ta de tang da ka res na nga su do nge phong bu yo ro. Pa ya ge ge sa ba ni. Pa ya ge ge de ne ko jun ka le me ba cha yo res. Ju sen ka res na ku ju de ne den ze re de yo res. Del nie bu yo be shi so ju se ko de ro.
The supple,
nga su do nge phong bu yo ro. Pa
the five suffering aggregates.
Saban pa ya get ko gale me ba zu tu res jusen kar res na ku ju denzin re dio tawa denzin tu dio res denzin del nie bu yo res.
Oh, okay. So the five suffering the five suffering aggregates, that's a hard one to get out. Five suffering aggregates, contaminated suffering aggregates, can be slowly eradicated. Why can they slowly be eradicated? Because they are caused by the grasping at true establishment, and the grasping at true establishment has an opponent or an antidote. So because there is an opponent or an antidote to its causal factors, it is necessarily possible to eradicate it.
What the ta tejin looking on no bu juro what dig ne su tu ku san dang wors. Chanson teba chamber region on so mar ba. On bu no bu de go de taba tu yo ba me yo na me nyomul nye bu yo na me denzil nye bu yo na me ku ju se bi taba yo na me de yo ba cheme nge ta du de cheme nge ba la doni du wors. So
the being of sharp capacity does this same thing that we just did. He or she will check, is there an antidote to the grasping at true establishment? Is there a possibility of stopping suffering? Is it possibility to achieve the state of liberation? Are these things possible? And if they are possible, then this ordinary being, Mahayana practitioner, Mahayana practitioner of sharp capacity, then first achieves the state of the wisdom realizing emptiness based upon that analysis, and then works towards Mahayana mind generation, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment. But first he or she engages in an analysis to recognize whether these things have opponents and antidotes and are possible, and then moves forward to the latter realizations.
Ta shan teba chemol roken on tu bu jung ro on tu ro ba on tu de den sal tang tu go maras taba yo ba da doni ta tu she ge men ko deba che bores deba je ne den shan ju sen se ge ne pyen she bo she shan ju sen gun jul jeng wores doni ma tu na shan ju sen jul jeng wores.
So the bodhisattva of dull capacity doesn't engage in this sort of analysis, doesn't check to see whether it is true that there is liberation isn't existent, or if the grasping at true establishment or afflictions have an antidote. He or she does not engage in this analysis. He or she just has a great level of faith. And through this great level of faith, he or she first generates the various types of mind, and then moves on to the wisdom realizing emptiness, and does not do that before the realizations of the realizations up to the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The wisdom realizing emptiness is achieved after the Mahayana mind generation is achieved by the being of dull mental faculties.
what the kitchen she was to Oma Jane goes, kitchen she was to and Oma Jane goes, Yanda, she took her down there, don't know about June, Dang and Tin and Jitin like Hijikun Genesis. Shansen honor the gay, and then Tambutuni to Tabayo Cemetery, then Najuka Sambaje, and Jane Shanjuk and Shuguchikares, Tambutuni to, and the Shanjuk and Shuguchikares, Marbe.
So, in Chandarachita's text, the ornament to the Madhyamika, we can find Umachan. Yeah, we can find in Chandarachita's text, the ornament to the Madhyamika, a quote that says, first, the practitioner of sharp mental faculties first achieves the wisdom realizing emptiness, then achieves the renunciation, love, compassion up to bodhicitta, where as the dull capacity practitioner must first achieve renunciation and the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and then the latter realizations of the wisdom realizing emptiness.
Tene ada TV jeno zubi shangju senje ne tene ada shi chu juns obu tubu dege dambu shangju sen julje ane to shugul jene toni lo jang jegres.
So the practitioner of the dull mental faculties then first achieves the state of the mind generations and so forth, and then achieves the wisdom realizing emptiness.
What did Nesudo what the Shansan honor don't want to do the Shanju Karsogre, teaching along Karsogre, Shanju Saint Julie Jebala Tony to one to Soma on Chiba Usaris, honor ina, Tomatoni to the Ningajuka Sambatan, Hijita, and the Shanju Saint Julie. On doing in a Tambo Shanju Saint Lojane, and the Kotoni to go Maris, Shanju Saint Julie. And the Gene Tony Lojanji was. Shanju Saint Jules Jaking Shedama you are, Dodaba you are, what to say, Daba Maru Tony Shetu Maris, which Shanju Saint Jules was.
So we can find the differences between the beings of sharp capacity and the beings of dull capacity, dull mental factors, sharp mental factors and dull mental faculties. Sharp mental faculties and dull mental faculties. So the difference is the being with the sharp mental faculties first has the wisdom realizing emptiness, then he or she studies renunciation, which leads to love and compassion in the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Whereas the practitioner of dull mental faculties first must achieve the realization of love, the renunciation, and then the love and compassion in the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and after that, then achieve the wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is the difference, the distinguishing factors between these two types of beings. So the sharp and dull mental faculty practitioners differ in these ways, and one can find bodhisattvas in the Great Exposition School as well as the Sutra School. So we can say that it's not necessary. There are practitioners in those schools who have the Mahayana mind generation, but are not necessarily. The Shiramawadan do Depa Wandu Wangun.
Wandu
Gangin Sena Konsu, the Tony do Bishirap Me.
Tony do Maradi, Shanju Saint Jules.
I had it right. So there are bodhisattvas who have who have the mind generation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment in the Great Exposition School as well as the Sutra School, but they do not have the wisdom realizing emptiness. So here we can find an example of a being of dull mental faculties who has the bodhicitta but not the wisdom realizing emptiness.
당가서 오만 단주로 제자진으로 와서 오만 단주 때나 안에 시다마 상주 semba 요아레 누도바 상주 semba 요아레 센장바 상주 semba 요아레 오마라 주바 상주 semba 요아레 도수게 오만 단주에 따는 돈이 도요 말레스.
So the Madhyamika Prasangika school, or the Middle Way Consequence school, states that yes, there are bodhisattvas in the Great Exposition School, there are bodhisattvas in the Sutra School, there are bodhisattvas in the Mind-Only School, and there are bodhisattvas in the Middle Way Autonomy School. But those bodhisattvas do not have the wisdom realizing emptiness because they are in the lower schools. So bodhisattvas can be found in all of the different levels of tenet systems, but according to the Madhyamika Prasangika, the middle way consequence view, only those consequentialists can achieve the wisdom realizing emptiness.
And the Shanchu was Julie Chicken, Rabon Yuari, Nyapa Yuari, and the Doari Toga Yuaris. The Zonga 22, Sami 22 Maris, Shanchu Saint Julie Yuaris. Nyapa Shanchu Saint Yuaris, Doari Toga Shanchu Saint Yuaris.
So the bodhisattvas can be found in all 6 realms of cyclic existence. There are hell beings who are bodhisattvas. There are rabbits who are bodhisattvas. So all 6 realms of cyclic existence. Deers, various other beings, all realms of cyclic existence. Bodhisattvas can abide in all realms of cyclic existence.
What the Zukangal Page Macho on doing, not smart.
Not smart. That's me today. So this is the explanation of the Wang Du Dao Ritu Tamshe Wang Un.
Oh, then the guy that
Ganju Surana.
Mele on Nobu Tubini or then not to roll a ni visit that.
Then it got some simple.
That remote dance I just about to on doing zero, not smart. All doing zero.
So the rabbit bodhisattva is dull mental faculties, but didn't he just say that there are both? The Ribon Wang Yorube.
And the Rabon Shanchu Samba Sanju Kuju, Rabon Shanchu Samba Jumbaris. And then the Konshina Jil de Duaris, Konshanchu Samba in the Kurung Tilio Kangi, and then the Rukango Chushi waters. What then again, what then again, the Nuglu waters.
We can find in the tales of the Buddha's previous lives, where there's a story of when he was a bodhisattva rabbit, and actually was able to give the Dharma to various animals in the forest and give teachings. And this rabbit was considered a bodhisattva.
And the Rabonko Shasago, Shamaza dil, then the Kurung Drobo, and then Shina Jilu, Sinjangolo Shamazas, Lawars.
So the rabbit didn't eat any meat, and he told all of the animals in the forest to not eat meat as well. This was advice that he gave.
Then the Shina Jil, then the Rabon Shanchu Sambajin Dusi, then the Kedachi Movumbars, Hatsu Kosmars.
So he became very famous, this rabbit bodhisattva, and so famous that the gods heard of this.
That Hatsu Kon, the Hai Jabatu Leon, that Rabon Tassuga Yumbars, Rabon the Kadajin.
So then the god heard of the guy.
Rabon Yasadwa, and then Nal Jimbatan Ruchis, Kinyatawajan, then the Yumbars. Jimbatan, Nal Jimbatan Ruchi, and then Naji, then the Kiji, and then Rabon Sambala, then Shansa Maria. And call Tiaca Mudu, Zubu to call Jimbatan.
So just to back up, the god heard of this very famous rabbit bodhisattva and wished to meet him, but it would be necessary for the rabbit to engage. The rabbit wished to engage in generosity and give something to the god when he came to visit, and he thought, I have no meat, I have nothing that this god would like to have. Then the Brahma.
Bama Beji is it.
Then
the Lagelansan, then the Medrivers Baya. Lansan Rabonte, Danga Munchun, and Azubu the Shad Subuchons on the Chonchurujis, Lansan Munchuners.
So then the god manifested fire, and the rabbit said, I have nothing to offer you, so I will offer you my own body, and jump into the fire.
Then Munchun was an Lansan Lago Trisha, Lansan Lago Medicevers, Lago Remote Layulcosmodus.
So then, at that moment, the fire was extinguished by the god immediately, and the god brought the rabbit up to the god's realm.
Oh, then the Loju do it, and they are, and the Sanjiki, Kuju Jilis, and Jusambaji, Saint Shawan the Jina Jijungaris, Marbe, what the Shanjusambaris, and the Kurunga, and the wife rida majuwaris. Ane kunyandu rida ngajayuwaris, shinajil dene. Ane tene ngobal hayuwar, kantimen. Tene kuzuki sambala ta rida jabadu kushanchu senpa yindul ta ngoba dusuki rida segi resan tene. Ta kulansan chine rida segi ngoba kaza pachin waris. Ane rida jenda masiru jangasi urujis. Tel laudul tene rida mate kunyandu uruzonris. Rida kunyandu uruzonris jabuki odandak loju yuwaris.
The rida dang nyamdu.
Rida pota shawa yinna shawa pajuyo jirwa. Te shanchu senparis. Ane kui shawa majuyo jirwa. Kunyi nyamdu deri yorwa. Ane shawa pota ku shanchu senpa yindu. Ane rida segin rida masi rujis, ngasi rujis.
Dene pumo garisum.
Ane pomo de kunyandu yungwaris. Rida nyamdu.
Okay, so there's another story of a time in the previous lives of the stories of the Buddha where he was the head of a herd of wild animals. And at this time, there were 500 wild animals. And the garre, the danger garre. Okay, we're not sure what kind of wild animals, maybe deers, but just wild animals. So there were 500, and because in the previous life of the Buddha, this particular head of the wild animals was a bodhisattva who was actually Buddha in his previous life, realized that there were hunters coming and that they were going to come to kill the herd. And the wild animals, I don't know if we call it partner, mate, wife, wild animals partner also came to stand by his side and said, the wild animal said, please do not kill the other animals. I will give you my own life.
다 상지 자갈네 상지 비디오스 자갈 비디오서 샤자문 보다 rida 포드레스 rida 포드 샤자문 보다레스 더 rida 모드 군가우 상지 요보 군가우레스
네네
rida nga자 샤지 그런 nga자
So in the actual life of the Buddha, the Buddha Shakyamuni was actually the head of the wild animals, and Kongi Pumo, Mugiputra.
Pumode Gungao.
And his wife or partner was Gungao, and the 500 wild animals became the 500 monks.
Shaji Gulung Naja.
500 ordained ones of the Shakya clan, or the 500 monks.
What Sanji, what the Shanchu Sen Lojan, what the Jin words, Redal Shanchu Sen Yosaris.
Got it. So we can say that yes, there are animals that are bodhisattvas.
And then Matu Shamba, Hinjit, Shanchu Sen to Yana to Gongina, and Jemaya, Jen to Tundu in a Kushanchu Sen Jul words.
So if we again and again now familiarize ourselves, meditate upon love and compassion in the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we will create a connection and eventually in our future be able to achieve the state of the mind that aspires to enlightenment because of these because of this prior familiarization.
And the Shajaman Buddha Shanchu Sen Jul Jika Lama Ling by Nyawa Tanil Jeswaris, Marbe, Nyawa Tanil Jene, and Chasi Sajagan, and Shanchu Sen Nyawan Jivaris.
So there's another story of Buddha in a previous life when he was born into the hell realm and was a bodhisattva in the hell realm and was engaging in work.
And the Koron Robo, Koni Jasi Sajagan Kashinta Tenwaris, and Koron Robo in Hijene, and Shanchu St. Julius Waters.
And he was working in the hell realm with a partner pulling a cart. And he developed love and compassion for his partner who was helping him pull the cart and was able to generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment in the hell realm. So in the previous life stories of the Buddha, we can find that, yes, there are hell beings who are bodhisattvas. Rinpoche, Tana Chutsu Juni, then Karma Ship Jushin.
What a Tungushasha.
So think Trua Dan Lenjab Gu.
Tamungazu Jinduan Dunsha. And the Toyo and the Sunrunas.
Okay, so first we're going to do the concluding prayers, and then we will have a short question and answer period. And if folks could just be mindful that Rinpoche eats at noon, it would just be beneficial. Oh, man. Nyambe bawu jeta jen badang kondu zambo de yonde jende dina kunji jesu dalo je gewa deta tanche ratu ngo duzun jepe jawa tanche ji ngo wa kala chutu ngapa de tajen gewe tsawa de kunjang sampo chuchi ratu ngo wa ri ra we ngo we ji nya ne be na ne wa ma lu nyo we ne jen re zi wa ne ne nya zo yi ya me zi ne ma nu ne nyo yi lo zun zam bo yu nye na la yun rin yam ban zi ming ye wei jin lun nan do me nen ban zin je wan yen su wan na rin jin sham nin jo lo nu wu nye zhu nga mong ban zi nga bing o zun do nga nan yu zin nan yu zun yun yu zam da ru yin ge shi ngom bo yun rin sham nin jo Sochana Sarang Jubu Drogi and the name Lam Mulan Jarolan Kamin Sena Chikshina Ben